And welcome everybody to today's webinar, how to create powerful and perfectly aligned copy for any medium. It's a message framework that's based off the fastest path to revenue. And briefly, before we start, I just wanted to tell you that you had many options to ways to spend your time today, and you chose to spend it with me, and I want to really pay off for you. So one of the advantages of us keeping these online groups small is that I get to spend time beforehand learning more about each of you and checking out your websites. And I've done that. And I think I'm prepared to offer relevant insight to any questions you might have as they pertain to this framework. And as you discover in this workshop, there is no substitute for direct customer-led insight. And it helps me produce a better product that you'll find more useful and pleasant. So help me get to know you better so I can deliver to you good content over the next 45 minutes. Tell me the one thing in the chat, the objective, the struggle, the dream, whatever it is as it pertains to creating better sales and marketing language and generating demand at scale. So while you take a few minutes for each of you to craft something and put it in the chat, and I'll just review them as we go and work through them as we go through this presentation. So a little bit about me, right? Who am I? I'm part of the co-inventor of the fastest path to revenue, and as a kind of fractional CMO working about 10 hours a month on a program. That's why I want you to think about my role here at Pro Sales Connection for multiple clients at a time and oversee demand generation programs. And some of those are 120 hours through significant, right? Generating millions of dollars in revenue. And we've helped customers, like for one example, of a software as a service product that sells to K-12. Earn a top spot on the Inc. 500. You can see it for yourself on the Inc. 2020 list. It's 312. And we helped them do 1,400% growth, generated nearly 30,000 leads, and qualified hundreds of demos with decision makers, and helped them close $3.5 million in revenue in 2 years. So that's one of many stories of the kinds of companies where the fastest path to revenue is created from that process. And I'm one of the people that manages that process every day for our company. And so why do you listen to me? Only because I'm the guy that tells you to listen to your customers, and then I give you the framework to help you do that better. And that's what we're going to do today. And so I'm still looking for something from each of you in the chat, so make sure you put something there. And you're in the right place today if you need to quickly generate new sales pipeline. I mean, we live in a world for at least the past 6 months, and maybe for the next 6 months, we're all revved up to attend trade shows. Some companies have invested into those, maybe got refunds, maybe didn't, maybe got credits, but really didn't get the demand they were looking for, right? And so what do we do in the midst of that? And maybe you're looking for tactical ways to improve the efficiency of lead generation and sales efforts, and if so, you're in the right place. You might be here because you're seeing a shift in buying behavior and looking for new ways to speak to your customers. We experience that across, and one of the things about working with us during this webinar is that we get a diverse perspective. We get to see not into one business, but across a wide array of businesses and B2B markets. Maybe you're not sure how to develop the marketing language that resonates with your ideal target customers, maybe ever, or maybe just right now. Maybe you're having a difficult time creating a brand distinction in your customer's mind, or maybe you just want more options to help you begin and advance more sales conversations. Either way, that's what we're going to work with today. So it's important because there's shifting market conditions, right? A lot of people are behind their numbers, and after any minimal amount of activity, efficiency is all that matters, right? And so once we know that we're doing the activity, if you're not making the calls, if you're not sending the emails, first thing is begin doing the activity. But what happens when you're doing the activity and it's just not working out as well as you need it to? Maybe you need an incremental improvement, or maybe you need a transformative improvement. But either way, we recognize that all sales funnels are linear. We build them linear to take a customer through A to Z in the buying process. But the path that they take through that is often non-linear. And so we need message components for multi-channel outreach, phone, email, and social. And we need to be able to create those elements based off customer-driven insight and not sit there staring at a blank screen trying to dream up the next thing that you'll write for your customers. So this we're going to cover on this one. A little bit pro sales. We've been in business since 2009, and we've generated over $1 billion pipeline for our customers. Overnight, our average SDR has 19 years experience. So the people that are making phone calls for our customers on the phone. So we are 100% invested in the growth of our customers. And what is the fastest path to revenue? You hear me talk about that a lot, but what does it mean? And it's a system that we've designed that what we wanted to do is just find what works and then strip away everything else that was not essential. And that's what our customers come to us for, the fastest path to revenue for their business. And we designed it for companies who sell complex or technical solutions. And I know the people that are on this webinar because I looked at all of your marketing materials that I could find before we came on this. So I know that everyone's in the right place. And it's a proprietary system we pioneered and have perfected with data-driven insight. And it's literally the fastest way to generate predictable pipeline for a B2B company. And we're going to outline elements of the fastest path to revenue throughout this webinar series. And this one is about how to develop message. I want to pose a question. What if it costs you 50% more to acquire a customer until a vaccine is released? Would you go into protection mode and just work to incrementally just maintain what you've got and protect your pipeline? Or would you say, it just cost me 50% more, so I'm going to figure out a way in order to pay that to acquire those customers and have an aggressive growth strategy and set yourself apart from the market? And so all of these things begin with that kind of objective in mind. But I want you to think that if it costs you 50% more, the only thing you could do more activity, but you wouldn't solve the problem. The only way to make more money when it costs you 50% more to acquire a customer is to improve the efficiency of your marketing campaigns. And that's where message comes in. So in order to talk more about the message and how we need to look at the full picture, right? Take a step back and look at what a healthy and productive funnel looks like. And the end result of this webinar, you walk away with a group of message elements for each stage in the demand generation process based on genuine customer insight. Insight that your customers have the answers, they just don't know how to communicate it to you. The process that we're going to discuss, it begins with collecting customer insight. The second step is to develop a hypothesis to rule out or confirm an idea that we've developed. Next thing, you'll need to know more than if it works, or the thing that's more important to know than if it works as to why it works or why it didn't work. And we'll discuss how to do that with the framework. And then how do we use the framework for each stage, right? Or how do we use it for email? Or how do we use it to create landing page copy? Or how do we use it to make a call script? And then the most important aspect of this are these last two steps. Once you've developed customer insight, is to emphasize methodical testing of each element in the framework. If you don't use a script or a framework, and you're not delivering consistent activity with a framework, then you can't isolate and test methodically, which is what's required to make incremental improvement or even transformative improvements to your demand generation process. So one thing that's been echoing in our mind evermore in 2020 is assumptions are not insight. 2 years ago, when we started a program with a customer, we would have insight that we had collected from our discovery process and also from things they've discovered from their sales process. And many of those assumptions and or extractions, right, the things that we assume or we learn from a company, we didn't directly infer it. We just assumed that it was the right answer. And so what's dangerous to know is it an inference, something that I inferred from data, from something a customer said, or is it an assumption I made about some experience that I've had? And all too often, if we build on assumptions, then the more assumptions we build into, the more inefficient that the marketing campaign becomes. So in order to improve the efficiency, the first thing we have to do is eliminate as many assumptions as possible. And conducting discovery is the way you reduce those dangerous assumptions. And then you replace them with customer-driven insight. And in 2020, whether the understanding your customer better is what helped Zoom have a massive increase in helping our customers, like Insights to Behavior and Lean 500, understanding their customers better is what attributed to the growth. I can show you examples, and I'll do that on following webinars, where we looked at value positions and how they've changed based off customer insight. In this webinar, we're going to go through the first three phases of the process. It begins with collecting your genuine customer insight about you, your company, your customers, and your competitors. The first one is company. So let's take a quick look at company insight. I've left a list of questions here on this, and anybody that wants a copy of this deck, just send an email to team, T-E-A-M, at ProSalesConnection.com, and I'll get you a copy of it. Just put deck in the subject headline. I'll send it over to you so that you make sure you have all of these questions. Because as much as this is a training, it's a workshop. And so I want you to take away these questions and turn them back internally and begin to answer these questions. And as you use the framework that I teach you, you'll begin to see how your message components evolve and change. So the biggest thing here is that companies just don't understand what drives their profitability. We have assumptions about what does that, but we don't have direct customer language. Well, here's what our customer said, and here's how that applies to this many other use cases. And often when we use the language the customers say, we avoid marketing jargon. And so about your customer insight, what I must know about my market or my customers. What this plan covers is the data about your industry. It provides benchmarks, and it helps you get a good place to begin your own data as a point of comparison. And when you talk about customer insight, you're saying, what do I do, and why is that relevant to my customer? How is it different from my competition? Being highly descriptive here and using customer feedback to fill in those answers, because everyone on this call is an intelligent, growth-driven marketing leader, executive, CEO, founder, and when we look at these, we might have somebody on our team that could just run through that list and answer all those questions for us. And that's the wrong answer. I can tell you that's the wrong answer. What we have to do is formulate a way, and it feels expensive, and it feels costly, and it feels time consuming, but every dollar in discovery is one of 100 you're going to spend to reach the wrong target with the wrong message. 5 ways to collect customer insight that really work for us. First thing, start internally. Interview the salespeople who closed the deals. We go back and look at sales recordings of presentations that salespeople give. Don't have those? Begin recording them. Let's look at the sales decks. Let's look at email communications. Let's look at testimonials. And the second one is to interview the customer service to identify friction and competitive strengths. There are things that are happening, especially if you have a software as a service product. There are points of distinction hidden in your analytics that help you to understand how your customers use your application and how you could use that information better to position against the needs that they might not even realize they have until they use your application. Another one is conduct phone and email surveys, and then use isolated digital ads to test ideas quickly. That's one of my favorite ways, is once we have a few discovery points, changes to message, spend $100 or $200 on digital ads and A/B test those ideas before you spend any more money on them. Competitor insight. We say 5 competitors. It's a good place to start. The problem is that many of our clients don't understand what a competitor means. There are 2 types. There are direct competitors. They sell a service or a product that is in direct competition to mine in some way or another. 5 of those. You need to know 5 of those, your top 5. And then there are these other types of competitors. They're the indirect or mind share competitors. Maybe you have a solution. Maybe it's a CTE solution for career and technical education in K-12, and you want to sell a specific type of program. But there are other types of programs that are competing with those same dollars. They might not be directly competitive, and there are other things in the budget. For example, some of our objections that we've recently uncovered for customers in that last quarter was that they were just so overwhelmed from everything that's happening in their organization that they're just reconsidering or postponing lots of things. And in that, many companies have figured out how to help them with that problem and have unlocked profitability. Zoom is a good example of that. It's important to know what would cause them to raise their hand by their own words, right? So the idea is to fill out these questions with direct customer insight. 5 ways to collect competitor insight. Digital marketing analysis like SEMrush and Ahref. Now, these are more tactical tools. As an executive, you might not use many of the deep features and reports you have there, but you probably have a subscription to those tools on hand somewhere. And if you don't, it's worth paying for a basic subscription. And if you just need a basic report run, just send us an email, team@ProSalesConnection.com, and we'll run those reports for you and just give them to you free of charge. That's team@ProSalesConnection.com. And
Through those, there's an executive summary data that helps you to understand who your real competitors are and gives you some benchmark as to how they're spending their money. And those from an executive level can be quite useful. Other things more tactically, data warehouses, Crunchbase, D&B Hoovers, you can learn a lot about your competitors in the same places you go build prospect lists, especially like Capterra or G2. And then, of course, opt in for everything and even kick some tires in the sales process. And then Google Alerts and social media profiles. When you collect all 4 of those or all 3 of those dimensions successfully, with it, at minimum the questions we have listed here, what ends up happening is you get to this thing called the singular point of distinction. It's the intersection of appeal and exclusivity. And appeal is the thing that you want, that your prospect wants more than anything else, and exclusivity is the thing that you can offer them that they want that no one else can. And in those markets where they're super competitive and they're really dense, those points of distinction can be small but meaningful, and they don't have to be revolutionary. You just have to be better at highlighting and linking your features and your advantages to the needs of the prospect, and the framework helps with that. Singular point of distinction ends up, as the framework evolves, you end up with a statement that looks like this. If you want to achieve or solve or prevent X, and you want to have an outcome is important to you, then you must try my product because it's the only one that does X. Now, this is what you call a big domino statement. You might have heard that from marketing books that you've read. The interesting thing that what we found is through experimentation is that these tweet-sized small messages are really good for tweets, social ads, one line in an email. And whenever you start with this kind of a message, and we'll tell you how to get there in just a second. We start with personas and account types. So personas, the ones that we worry about, are decision makers, influencers, end users, and buying or decision team members. Briefly, we all know what decision makers are. Those are the people who have the authority to make decisions. The influencers are those people that sit next to, work alongside with the executives or their counterparts that have a say in either the adoption or the implementation of a program. The end users are the people that use it. And so we look for advantages at the end user level that we can communicate to the decision maker or influencer level. Those decision makers and influencers often don't have the pain of the end user. They don't experience the business case. So the business case needs to be brought to their attention in an executive style way. The types of accounts we offer is just rank them into 1 of 2 ways at a basic level, are high value and low value. The low value accounts are going to be the ones that you will do more automation and less one-to-one outreach. The higher value accounts are the ones that you'll do higher value outreach, one-to-one outreach, or have dedicated SDR, BDR elements that are making phone calls and sending emails. The secret to all this predictable growth stuff is after that minimum amount of activity to produce a result, it's all about efficiency. And that's the pathway to scale. So we go to do better. Let's dig into the frameworks. Let's pretend that you've collected the insight from your customers. And now you need to create an email or an advertisement to send out that directs people to a landing page where they'll sign up for an online event or perhaps tick a box and to request a product demo. So we'll go over the framework that we can use for both. So it's PADITP, and it's like similar to ADA, right? Attention, interest, or a BANT, which is budget and authority, need, and time frame. But we find it more useful because it takes into account some of the intricate factors that really account to the quality of a prospect list. And so we'll talk about each one of those factors as we continue and how to collect them. But what we'll ultimately produce, just for those visual people, is a map of the target accounts. The non-target accounts, the ones that you'll do one-to-many outreach with, or you make use of automation because they're lower value or they're higher risk or they take longer to close. Those ones are not the ones we're talking about here. These would be the ones that are your premium target accounts. Those are the ones where you're going to have the fastest amount of growth in the first place, is targeting those high profile accounts, the ones that are easiest to close. We do that by identifying and breaking down those target accounts by a few dimensions and then identifying who is the decision-making team. Not just who the decision maker is, but who's the team. And how that makes sense of how many influencers they have and end users. Those are things you end up finding in the sales process. I also like to figure out, are they on our side or are they secretly working against us? A lot of times sales will fall apart at the last end because somebody who was really bought into your process has to turn around and sell it to someone else. And that's where, in this message development, we always keep those kinds of things in mind, and to help us to eliminate those challenges later on in the sales qualification process, we use maps like this to identify, of these target accounts, who is the buying team and how friendly and open are they to the idea of working with us. Personas are who we're targeting, and we include 7 additional dimensions for each one of those. We'll briefly talk about them. Personas are the decision maker, team member, influencer. So those are the different types of personas. But the preference is how the person prefers to have this type of problem solved, which may be different. For some personas prefer to have a done for you approach. I set an objective and a policy, and I want you to go execute for me. There's the done with you. It's more of a consultative approach. I might have a person that comes in and augments our workflow or helps us. And then there's also the do-it-yourself people. They want a tool or a software or an application or something that they're going to use internally with their existing processes. And it's very difficult to sell a person who wants a do-it-for-you or a done-for-them solution, a do-it-yourself style solution. And so understanding what they prefer, what types of solutions they're interested in, help to position them. The willingness is another thing that's important, is that friend, foe, neutral, or unaware. If they are unaware, they don't know of us. If we've exposed them and we're not quite sure how they feel about us, if they're for or against what we're doing, then they're neutral. And it's a progressive profiling of the persona that helps us to create ever better messaging throughout the sales process. So inside this slide deck, I've created 6 more slides that go into detail about each one of these so that you can look at them on your own. One of the ones that I want to talk about a little bit more is the priority. A prospect's priority, or their availability, becomes more accessible when their company has an established priority for solving your challenge, or solving a challenge that your company can address. So when we work to understand if the priority is a focal one, a peripheral, or it's not a priority because they're just not a fit and will never experience the problem, or it's not a priority because the prospect's just not aware of the problem, or has solved the problem for now, which is a nurture type list. And so as we begin to progressively profile through discovery, through insight, through lead qualification and surveying, which is ultimately leading towards sales conversations, we get to understand really what's making these accounts tick. And that's the key to improving the efficiency. Timing and willingness are the last of the 7. This is often a gauge for the prospect's willingness to meet now, soon, later, or not at all. Some prospects, and they just admitted and said this, they'll just will never take a meeting from a cold call. They say that. I know that to be contrary sometimes, but the reality is they believe that in their mind. And so when we understand that a person is willing to do certain types of activities, then we can focus on the activities that are more useful. And we find these through some of the methods here I'll show you. So all of the marketing materials or marketing message that you share on any platform is going to make use of a new opportunity. It's to help you create a kind of novelty and also a consistency in your message that makes it new and relevant and fresh as you market over time. So with the new opportunity, each one of these messages that we write always starts with a kind of new opportunity. It's a hook of sorts. If I can make persona type and account type believe that my new opportunity is the key to what they desire most and is only attainable through my specific vehicle, then all objections become irrelevant and they will invest. This is something you can test. That's the point, is whenever you start with an hypothesis like this, I can test that to see how well it works. And when I map that to my customer life cycle, I have a set of metrics that enable me to see how my marketing efforts are working on a persona basis. Put it all together. The perfect landing page template is just what we call it. It's not really, you don't put it on a copy paste it onto a landing page. What it is like all of the components that you need to put on a landing page to capture an email address for a demo or for a white paper download, that's really where a lot of sales development live. It's in that lead generation, qualification, nurturing. So we create a lot of messaging for call plans, follow-up call plans, email, cold email, email nurture, advertising, and also social media posts. We also use this type of language or template, not a template, a framework. It's not copy and paste. That's detrimental to do it that way, because what it enables us to do is just gives us all the things that we need to make when we hand it to a marketing coordinator or to a digital marketing manager, or when we look at it at executive level, you're able to see a coherence that everyone has everything they need in order to make the program successful. And then each one of those elements of that can be mapped to a metric that corresponds to the funnel. So new opportunity example 1. So we've taken some of these, let's pretend our customer insight's finished, right? And then I'm able to craft this new opportunity statement. Here's an example. These are all real customers that we've worked with and real campaigns that have been 6-figure campaigns or better. And I thought they'd be really relevant to the people that were on the call today. So if I can make a CIO at a private company that is under $1 billion in annual revenue believe that latest features in our global threat monitoring application is a key preventing 99% of all malware intrusions, and it's only attainable through our product name, then all objections become irrelevant, and they'll invest. Now, that could be a giant assumption. We could just fill that in and guess and say, let's see if that's right. The whole point is that you use the customer insight process listed before this, and those things, the fill in the blank becomes a whole lot easier and way more effective. So when we take that first statement here, the new opportunity statement, and we convert that or run that through the perfect landing page framework, you get something like this. And the important part is that when we include things like specific improvements that are seen from a company that's just like the one I work with, those types of statements, I no longer have to use language like these right here, these 2 words, effective and efficient. Removing those words from your messaging and replacing them with words like a 300% improvement threat identification for Acme Inc. When everyone knows who Acme Inc. and they go, and your prospect says, well, that's the kind of thing I'd like to have. You let your customers' achievements sell your products for you. If you don't know what your customers' achievements are, you can't guess at that. You have to drill back down. Another thing to point out in this example is that there are 2 calls to action, a direct and a transitional. So a transitional is, I'm not quite ready to enter into a sales conversation, but I would like some additional information. New opportunity 2, if I can make CFOs at companies that process over 10,000 invoices per month believe that our double patented invoice automation application is the key to reducing costly processing times from invoice exceptions by 99%, and it's only attainable through us, right? Then other objections will become irrelevant and they will invest. If that's something that were true, we can test that. We can run that through the PLP framework and identify some message elements, and then we can adapt these for email, for advertising, for social posts, and test this hypothesis with just generally tweaked language consistently over time and see if it's the right answer. And you can test multiple threads of the same types of things. So in opportunity 3, if I can make special education directors at public K-12 schools believe that our new behavior management software is the key to helping them reduce unnecessary special education referrals and solve disproportionality, and it's only attainable through my specific software, then all objections become irrelevant and they will invest. This opportunity example is very special because this opportunity example actually made this company $7.5 million in pipeline in 2 years. It did not look anything like this when we started, especially the words legally defensible and things that we've learned like disproportionality. Those kinds of words are words that the prospect uses in their discussions day to day. Using those language back to them instead of our fancy marketing language is actually way more compelling. When you have a distinction like the only or the first or the best, if you don't have one of those, you have one. You just have to be more creative at how you look for it. And answering these discovery and insight questions are one of the ways to get there. So timing. we talked a little bit about the frameworks, and they're laid out there for you. And if you start at the beginning of this presentation and you work through the bottom of it, you're going to come out with a perfect landing page copy and a new opportunity statement. And whenever you do that, if you send it to team@prosalesconnection.com, we're happy to review that and schedule a 1-hour complimentary strategy session with you to help you just understand it and know what you should do going forward as you work to perfect it. Or yeah, anyone that watches this. So we take it back to each stage of the customer journey. Let's talk about this for a second, customer journey. When you want to contact a new customer or a new prospect, there are a couple of different ways we do that. We go pay someone who has that attention and we stand in front of them or show them an ad, or we buy their email address and we send them an email, or we acquire a prospect. At that early stage, the message framework helps you to ask the questions, because the first intent of your first communications with your customers is not to sell them or to set the meeting or to close the deal. The first 3 stages, contact, marketing, qualified lead, sales qualified lead, is just to determine if they are a fit, if they're interested in it, if they have a willing to meet with sales. Those are the 3 things that you're looking for. When you work to progressively profile the other aspects of the persona framework in this deck, what you'll say at each one of these stages is you'll say, well, when I need to write something on a blog post for a person who just to opt in to see if they're fit and interested. That's the objective. Determine if they're fit and interested. Use the message development framework, the perfect landing page copy, to write something for that specific prospect to say, yes, I'm fit and interested. At the next stage, the only thing you have to do is develop one soundbite or a small set of sound bites that you communicate across channel to gain their willingness, right? So since you're fit and interested, are you also willing? And oftentimes we look at a sheet of marketing KPIs and we'll see, here's what we've done in activity, here's the percentage of change, here's how much it's gone up or down, here's how much money I'm spending on it, how much money I'm making on it. But are you sure that how well that each one of those marketing benchmarks are aligned to each one of these persona elements that have to happen in order for the sales process to even occur? I looked at everyone's website and LinkedIn profiles, and it led me to this one thought that I wanted to wrap this up with, is what do people want? And I've heard it said that people don't want the drill, they want the hole. And I don't believe that's true. I don't think they want the drill or the hole or even the art hanging on the wall. I think what they're ultimately after is the satisfaction that comes along with having a home that represents their personal style and self-expression. What does that have to do with B2B marketing? It's because at some point, someone in that process of getting that art hung on the wall or that solution cared about the installation and how the art gets fulfilled, or how to choose the right wall hanging, or the process of drilling a hole, or what about the drill and its features. Somebody at some point cares about each one of those things. How you scare a prospect off is talking about the wrong thing they care about, or putting them all in a presentation and just thinking, well, I need to show it to all of them. So we say, who buys the drill? There, in each one of your sales processes, there is this thing. There's the functional item you sell that has features. That's the drill. And the hole is the advantage or the solution, right? What does it do? What is the outcome? And who buys the art is the person, it's the buying committee. It's the people who are involved in those processes. And some people care about the hole more than they care about the drill. And then there's this idea of who installs all this, the idea of implementation and fulfillment. And in our message, we have to address all of these answers to all these questions, but we should not throw them all against the wall and see which one sticks. But test each one of these ideas to find out who does those things and how they prefer to have them done. The parting message in all of this is identify your assumptions and convert them into customer-led insight by using this framework here. As you use it, please send it to me. If you have any struggles, opportunities, if you have some thoughts or feedback or anything like that, I'm happy to hear it. If you need us to talk with someone on your team about how to make this happen for your team, we'll do a 1-hour strategy session with you. And I realize that's a lot of information. I'm looking in the chat to see if anybody answered that question that I asked you. Is there something that you're having a struggle with? And you know, believe it or not, out of all the people on this list, nobody answered that question for me. So I'm going to follow up an email with you. So I know I had a limited amount of time together. Was there anything? Let me know by chat or by sending me an email. My name's Jeffrey, and you send me an email at team@prosalesconnection.com and let me know what was useful about this, what questions do you have, and how I might be able to help you. There are some resources for the do-it-yourselfers that I can point you to, you or your team. If you just let me know what you're struggling with, we're pretty good at helping you to solve those specific challenges. We do all of this. We do full funnel outreach, inbound and outbound. Some people don't know that. We're here and we're going to tell everyone on the call now. So whether you needed a full demand generation strategy for a 2-year growth plan to help you grow between 70 and 1,400%, we're the people that can help you do that. If you're the kind of company, maybe you've got 1,500 employees in a full marketing department and a bunch of salespeople, there are often disconnects in the sales and marketing process that create threats and vulnerabilities, and we can identify those and just plug in very small and strategic places that are meaningful to you to help you bridge the gap and to end any friction in the sales and marketing process. In the bottom of this deck, you'll find 3 case studies where we've helped customers that are just like the people on this call, so that you can see how we've helped others that are like this. And if you're interested in any type of agency services that we have to offer, it says here to begin with an exploratory call, but I'd ask the people on this call, we'll hook you up right directly with Mike Faraday. He's the CEO of Pro Sales Connection and the founder, and he is the originator of the fastest path to revenue, and he'd be a good fit to just have those 1-hour strategy call sessions with you. And normally he does those at $315 for $375, I think, for founders, but he's going to do it no cost for anybody on this call. So Mike at Pro Sales Connection, I know he's blocked out a few slots for this, but I know they'll fill fast. So if you're interested in just the 1-hour call, it's not a sales session. He's not a sales guy. He's the founder of the company, and he will give you business decision support and demand generation guidance on the fastest path to revenue, and it's backed up by data. Do we have any questions or anything? Feel free to email me, jeff@prosalesconnection.com, or to set a meeting with Mike. You can email Mike right there. And I think that about concludes it today. I didn't see any questions in the chat, but I'm going to follow up with each one of you and make sure that you got something out of this. And if you didn't, we're going to make sure you do next time. So thank you so much for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.